It's not gonna rain, Noah. It's not gonna rain. Is it? Hey, and welcome to the Sunbrook Takeaway. I'm Tanner Treffin and joined by Pastor Joey Rumble. Pastor, how you doing?
So good, man. Good to be here. Excited and glad it wasn't raining today.
Hey, me too. Me too. And glad God gave us the promise that He wasn't going to flood the earth again. That's for sure.
That's good news.
It's good news.
As a covenant, matter of fact.
Yeah, so the Sunday was awesome, digging into Noah and how Noah shows Jesus, the red thread.
Yeah.
So it was a great message. The first point you got into is Noah walked with God.
Yeah, I just find it amazing. And Hebrews points it out too in Hebrews 11 that God let him in on what he was going to do. And so my heart is, man, in my life, in our congregation's life, I want to walk so close with God that I can hear his direction and him let me in on insights of what he's wanting to use me to do, as well as see other things happening.
Yeah, it's just so crazy that their thoughts were so evil that they're always were thinking of doing evil. And I just feel like Noah's such a symbol of what we're supposed to be like as our American culture is continuing to get more and more wicked, that we want to be Noahs, we want to be different than the world. And I think that Romans 12:2, that do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that only happens from that walking with God, that connection with God. And I want to have that like Noah did.
And that was my soap journal as well that I shared with the church, that Noah walked with God. And he was righteous in his generation. And that's all about spending time with him and listening. And that takes discipline. You're tired. You don't sometimes feel like it. But when you don't feel like it, you do it anyway. And there's intimacy and closeness in that. Just this morning, I didn't feel like spending time with the Lord. I didn't want to read my Bible this morning, but I took the time to do it. And, man, it was so life-giving. Yeah. I was so thankful. And God spoke. God really spoke. I could go into it right now. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was thinking about how I loved you sharing those pictures up there about you and Jenny going visiting the Ark. I just think that's so cool. That makes me, and I want to go visit that with Mary.
Yeah.
And you said it's a big daddy boat.
Yeah, it really is. I think it was huge. And inside's really neat. It's got the 3 floors, and that you don't know exactly, besides the 3 floors, how it all worked, but they were real creative in a good way. So it was a lot of fun.
And that gets into the next point, so that Jesus is the door. And I was wondering, on the Ark example, did they have, was there only one way in, one way out?
Yes, there was.
I'm sure they had secret emergency exits.
Yeah, there had to have been. I'm sure there's code. I only remember the one door, but I'm sure you could go online and see. Speaking of that, if you head on that trip, let me know. And if you're heading from here from Somerville, there's a cool little place you can stop off at, the Virginia Creeper Trail. That's a real easy 30-mile bike ride that you would love, that Jenny and I did. So just a tip on the vacation if you go.
Yeah, and the parallel between Jesus saying, "I am the door," and there being only one door, and how the Ark is a refuge, and only by entering into it can you be saved. And so the first question someone might have is, Noah walked with God. Well, how do I walk with God? Enter through the door. Enter into a relationship with Jesus, and that's the first step to being a walk with God and have that relationship.
Yeah, he's not a way; he is the way.
Amen. Yeah. I was talking to Thomas Deaton at Next Steps this past Sunday, and he was taking his next step, growing in his purpose. But he was sharing how us been talking about the fear of God has really been impacting him. He said he was in the military, and from the military he learned not to fear no man, to be fearless, and he's kind of taken that to not fearing God as well. And so he kind of has been realizing that that's not good. And he's been growing in the fear of God. And you see that with Noah, that Noah feared God, but he also loved God and had a healthy balance of both. So
yeah, that's one of our goals this year as a church, to walk in that. And that's cool that's resonating in his heart.
Yeah, that was cool too. One question you got into was, what do you need to step away from to step into what God has for you? I thought that was awesome. Great question to ponder on.
Yeah, and in the second service, I didn't say it this way in the first, but the second, I was like, what do you need to leave here today? Like what? And so as you're listening to the takeaway here, what is it that you need to leave here as you're listening to that? Like there's got to be things you got to leave behind. That big one, leaving control, is one we have to regularly do. Is the one I brought up to the church. But particular sins that you're struggling with, or whatever attitude, jealousy, and it's unique for each one of us.
Yeah, and Noah, I feel like really was smart with his time, that he didn't waste his time doing whatever the world was doing, but he spent so much time what was it, 100 years building the ark, which looks so dumb to the rest of the world. But he was right, and the millions were wrong. And so, what do we need to do that might look dumb to the rest of the world?
Yeah.
But the only way you're going to be able to do that is step away from what we're doing now. So I think,
and it's obvious. You see exactly one of the things Noah did. He left the opinions of people behind. Like he was not allowing that to sway him to not be obedient to the Lord. So opinions of people is a big one in Noah's life that we can emulate as well.
Yeah, and that's not living in the fantasy life, but it gets into what you said of embracing your season,
Yes.
seeing where God has you, where He's taking you, and what can you do now to prepare for that season that He's bringing you into.
Yeah. So that embrace your season is huge because he embraced the season to build the ark so that when the storms came and the flood came, he was able to enter the ark. So what do we need to do in our seasons? And I share with the church, our season now, my wife and I, empty nest, all our kids are adults, grandkids. I'm the pastor, Summerbrook Church, loving it. This is my season, and how to embrace that and know your season.
Yeah, for me, I'm married, but I have 3 little children, all 2 and under, but with another one on the way, so about to have 4. And I feel like a lot of times I have like all this passion, all these ideas of things I want to do, but I got a bunch of little kids at home that I can't do everything right now, and so I have to embrace, like, hey, they're only going to be little for so long, so be at home, be present, enjoy where I'm at is a big part of what I'm going through.
Yeah, and like maybe Jenny and I can do like 4 things or 5 things. You'll have to slow your pace down where you can only do 3 things that day or whatever it is. You just can't go as quick a pace because, and so I think it's huge to really know your season and end stage of life, all that.
I think you might have shared it this way the second service, but I was at a conference with the youth students this past weekend. And Greg,
how did that go?
Greg Kokel, it was awesome.
Okay, good.
We really grew in our knowledge and apologetics of God and how to defend the faith, and it carried over into Bridge this past Sunday, so that was really cool. Just different students able to answer questions. But he said the most important generation is always the next generation, and so I feel like that ties into embrace your season is seeing who can you pour into, who can you disciple, who's in your family that you can help raise up in the Lord. And you talked about seeing a tree and seeing an ark, seeing those places where you need to cultivate and grow and pour into your kids and help them to grow into what God's calling them to be. And some things we're doing here at the church is we got Wednesday nights coming up, May 3rd, 6 to 7:30 for the students to come and meet with God. But also we got Summer Blast coming up this summer, end of June. That's going to be awesome, our VBS. So I'm excited for these different things.
Yeah, I'm super pumped myself. I'm looking forward to. I'm definitely going to be there for the launch of that Wednesday night youth service, and I'll be at the VBS and passing out those Freezy Pops as well. It's amazing. I just love impacting the next generation as a church. Man, let's go. It's so exciting the what we're doing, what we're leaning into as a church to our teenagers and our kids.
Yeah, and speaking of making an impact, man, we got Serve Day coming up May 20th. That's going to be a great day, Saturday, to serve as a family and make a difference in our community.
Yeah, everyone jump in, and that's a great time. Like you said, serve as a family. Bring your whole family with you to serve and sign up online, and let's serve a whole community.
So Noah walked with God. Any final thoughts for us on that message, Pastor Joey?
Yeah, take the time to really slow down and listen to the Lord's leading so that you can hear Him speak into your life of what you need to do and what He's calling you to do. That's kind of, and really it kind of leans into next week about that walking with God, hearing God lead, because we're going to continue this journey through the book of Genesis, red thread, seeing Christ in the Old Testament. And we're going to get to Abraham. And a big thing about Abraham is, the father of the faith, that the generation.
Abraham had many sons.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but the big thing there is one of the takeaways I want you to think about for this Sunday that we're going to really look into is, have you ever felt like God had said something to you, but you were struggling to believe that? Did you really say that? And to have the faith to believe God could do that. And Abraham is a story of insight of strengthening your faith. So I can't wait to dig into red thread and a life of Abraham in Genesis this week.
I want to be there. I want my faith to be strengthened. Yeah. That's for sure.
What was your takeaway?
My takeaway was we didn't actually get into this point, but you talked about how in I think it was First Peter, it talked about how Noah was a herald of righteousness, a preacher of righteousness.
Preacher of righteousness, a herald.
And so I was like,
town crier.
I want to be that herald, that town crier, where it's hard for people to go to hell around me. Yeah. They know about the gospel. They know who I am, and I've invited them to church. I invited them to know Jesus and to be that herald of, hey, Jesus is coming back. Do you know him? Are you ready? So
yeah, and that's awesome that we're all called to do that in the town we live in. Our season, we live here in Summerville, South Carolina. We need to be reaching it for Jesus by having conversations on a regular basis with people. Where just the other day I was getting something from Dollar General, and I said, hey, I pastor Sunbrook Church up the road there on Orangeburg Road. Do you know where it's at? Having conversations with some people waiting in line as we were about to get into the swim center there in North Charleston. Just looking for opportunities to be that town crier.
That's awesome. What was your takeaway, Pastor Joey?
It was the walk with God. Really walking with the Lord, hearing His speaking into your life so that you can see what God wants you to see, hear what He wants you to hear.
And I bet you having that takeaway helped you to be faithful to it this morning when you were struggling to be obedient.
That was awesome. Big. Yeah, and I just you make it a habit and it becomes life-giving.
That's awesome. So, church, what's your takeaway? If you want to make headway, you need a takeaway. So ponder that and walk closely with the Lord this week. We love you. God bless you.